When we hear the word management, we almost always think about something external, right? Managing a team, a company, a project. But what if the single most important management job you'll ever have is the one happening inside you? That's what we're digging into today. This huge shift from trying to manage the world out there to first mastering the world in here. So let's start with a really quick personal question. Just think back for a second, back to when you were 5 years old. How happy were you? Just for no reason at all. Now, fast forward to today. If you had to plot your happiness on a graph, which way is that line heading? Because for a lot of us, even with all the success we've built, that line is weirdly pointing down. And this gets to a really sharp observation from the mystic Sadhguru. He says that it's not just people who fail who are unhappy. So often, it's the people at the very top, the ones who've gotten everything they ever wanted, who are actually deeply suffering their own success. It's a massive paradox, and it's sitting right at the heart of our modern lives. So let's really unpack this paradox of success. Think about it. We have more comfort, more technology, more opportunity than any generation in human history. And yet, when it comes to the actual quality of our day-to-day experience, we seem to be falling behind. How is that possible? You know the path we're all told to follow. It seems totally logical, right? Go to school, get a great career, chase those big ambitions, and we do it all with this underlying belief that achieving all that stuff is going to make us happy. But if you've done all that, and your well-being isn't going up, if that graph is flat or even dipping down, well, that can only mean one thing. We're just not very good managers of ourselves. So if we're not great at managing our own inner world, how does that spill over into how we manage other people? Well, it means we tend to fall back on some pretty broken models of leadership. And we're going to start with the biggest myth of them all, the idea that management is about being the boss, about using force. There's this fantastic story that just nails this idea. So a lion wakes up one morning, he's feeling extra powerful, kind of like a manager, and he decides, today I'm going to walk around the jungle and make sure everyone knows who's in charge. So he corners this tiny rabbit and roars, "Who is the king of the jungle?" The poor rabbit is terrified, just squeaks out, "You are, of course you are." He does the same thing to a fox, gets the same answer. It works on every small animal he meets. They all answer out of pure fear. And with each answer, the lion's ego just gets bigger and bigger. Feeling pretty much invincible at this point, the lion spots a massive tusker elephant. He struts right up to him and bellows the exact same question. "Who is the king of the jungle?" The elephant doesn't even bother to answer. He just wraps his trunk around the lion, swings him through the air, and just smashes him into the ground. The lion is just lying there, completely broken and confused. He looks up at the elephant and says, "Look, you could have just told me." And the tusker looks down and says, "You see, I had to make my point." And that right there is the fatal flaw of managing by force. It only ever works on people who are weaker than you, and it's an incredibly unstable way to lead. So here's the real takeaway. Throwing your weight around is not management, it's just bullying. The real alternative, the only one that actually works, has nothing to do with fear or control. It's about creating an atmosphere of passion, of inclusion, where people feel like they're being lifted up, not pushed down. Okay, so if brute force is a dead end, what about the other popular method? Finding some clever, easy shortcut to the top. Well, this brings us to our second broken model of leadership, trying to get to the top using means that just can't last. As the story goes, there was this pheasant, and he was just staring up at the highest branch of a tree. He was getting old and just didn't have the strength to fly up there anymore. And a bull, who was just grazing nearby, overheard him and offered up some, let's just call it unconventional advice. The bull just says, matter-of-factly, "Hey, just eat a little bit of my dung every day. The whole of humanity is on it. You could give it a try." Now, the pheasant was totally disgusted, but the bull's logic was kind of hard to argue with. So, pretty hesitantly, the pheasant gives it a go. And you won't believe it, but the dung actually gives him just enough of a boost to get to the first branch. He keeps it up, day after day, and in about 2 weeks, he's sitting right there on the very highest branch of the tree, looking down at the world. It looked like the shortcut had actually worked. But just as he's sitting there enjoying his success, a farmer sees this nice, plump pheasant sitting right at the top of the tree. The farmer raises his shotgun,
and shoots him right down. And the moral of the story is as simple as it is true. Even bullshit can get you to the top, but it will never, ever let you stay there.
So if force is a myth and shortcuts are a trap, then what on earth is the answer? Well, this is where we make the most important pivot of all. We stop looking outside for the solution and we start looking inside. We start to explore the incredible power of inner management. Now, inner management isn't some vague, feel-good idea. It's a practical science. It is the actual skill of managing your own internal machinery, your body, your mind, your emotions, your core energies, so that you can begin to create the life that you want, on purpose, by intent, instead of just letting life happen to you by accident. And here's a wild way to think about it. Everything you call your body is really just a pile of all the food you've ever eaten, and everything you call your mind is just a pile of all the impressions you've gathered from the world. But you're the one who gathered all that stuff. You're something much deeper, much more fundamental than either of those two heaps. And that leads to a really confronting question. We all agree it's slavery if someone on the outside controls what you do. But what if someone or something on the outside gets to decide what happens inside of you? What if your boss can decide if you feel angry, or the traffic can decide if you feel miserable? Isn't that the most intimate and maybe the worst kind of slavery there is? And this is where it all comes together. Because once you start to actually manage your own inner world, it completely changes how you show up in the outer world. Leadership stops being about control and authority, and it becomes this beautiful art of inclusion. See, the point isn't to become some perfect manager of perfect people. A beautiful life, or a beautiful team for that matter, doesn't come from perfection. It happens when people put their whole heart into what they're doing. It's passion, not perfection, that creates real magic. So, real leadership isn't about telling people what to do. It's about creating an atmosphere where people feel so included and so passionate that your dream becomes their dream. When you manage yourself, when you operate from a place of joy and balance, you can touch the core of another person's humanity. And when you do that, people will lay down their lives for you. But if you try to manage them from a place of stress and instability, well, you'll just get ulcers trying to pull them along. It's all about elevating people, not just directing them. And really, that's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're trying to manage your family, a small business, or a whole country. Your ability to create anything meaningful on the outside is a direct reflection of the mastery you have over your own inner world. Inner management isn't just a nice-to-have skill. It's the only foundation that truly lasts. The greatest management project you will ever undertake is you.